get the stories out. All right, Jennifer, take it away.
Wow. Okay. First of all, let me just continue to thank you guys for allowing me to be on here and be my little part of the story and share my little part of the story. Now then, in regard to the situation overall with being inside the system and how I have realized that it is, as Becky was saying, the signature. It's the signature that is giving the authority away that they can tap into these treasury accounts that we're unaware of and all these things. And while I was inside and I was refusing to be booked and all these things, I refused, fingerprinting, I refused photographs and everything, at least initially. And they kept telling me, you're gonna have to do this stuff or you won't be able to get out. And I was trying to discern what possibly I could do. How could I sign? What was I going to do to be able to get out of there without? It was looking more and more that they were putting me in such a box that the only thing I was going to be able to do would be to perjure myself, essentially, because I'm not the corporate fiction, but yet they're telling me to say that I am. And so I was nervous for this time, trying to figure out how I was going to get around it and what I was going to try to do and how I was going to sign. And essentially what ended up happening on the third day, after two separate attempts to book me two other times the 2 days prior, on that last day, they called me down and they said, okay, we're going to take you down to finish the booking process. And basically I just sort of stayed quiet and decided to let everything unfold before me without asking too many questions and just make each of my decisions about what to do in terms of signing and so on and so forth as they were presented to me. So I went down and I was in the process, and whereas the day before when they were attempting to book me, they had already taken my photograph. I had allowed them to do this because so far I hadn't had to sign anything. And so I thought, okay, they can have my fingerprints, they can have my photo, but as long as I don't sign anything, then I haven't given them any permission for these things. So on that second day, when he was trying to book me and obtain my permission, I said, no, I'm not going to sign this. I don't feel comfortable signing. Oh, come on, you can just sign it Mickey Mouse, And I said, yeah, right. And so, I didn't sign anything. And then on that third day, the day I was slated to be released, assuming that I was going to cooperate, then they took me down, and as I said, they had photographed me the day before, and the process stopped right there the day before because prior to fingerprinting me, they were requiring me to go ahead and sign the electronic pad, and that was when I said, oh, no, I'm not going to sign anything right now. And they tried to bully me some more, and it went to the next day. So this day I thought, I'm just going to stay calm. I'm realizing that, for one thing, my paperwork is all in order. It's completely in order. I did everything per procedure, everything. And so I'm totally here, not only unlawfully, but illegally. So I just need to get out of here because I can't do anything. I'm not helping my own situation by sitting here. So I thought I have to get out of here. So I'll just know what to do when it comes to sign. I just trusted this. And so basically what ended up happening is whereas the day before they were wanting a signature before fingerprinting me, this particular day, the corrections officer was different than the day before, and he was just chatting up a storm to other people, and he was thanking me for keeping them in business and, how he's going to retire in another year and so on and so forth, without a hint of irony, in his countenance, you know. I mean, it was just completely serious. And I just nodded and would listen. I wasn't commenting on anything. And so I was waiting for him to say, okay, sign right here. And I had already decided I was going to sign without prejudice, you know, UCC 1-308. And I was trying to determine if I was going to put my initials or what I was going to do, and I hadn't even decided yet. Working through it in my mind, and so this time he didn't ask for my signature before fingerprinting me. He went ahead and actually fingerprinted me. And so we're standing there, and he's kind of distracted talking to someone else, and he's looking at the computer. He's saying, okay, let me check here, make sure everything is entered in. And I'm waiting, thinking any second he's going to go, oh, yeah, here, sign here. Well, he never does. And he's never prompted to have me sign anything from there on out. And so the next thing I knew was that I had been booked, I had been fingerprinted and photographed, but I hadn't signed anything. Nothing. Like, I didn't sign anything when I went in. I didn't sign anything in the courtroom. Originally, in the hearing, they had tried to get me to sign an affidavit of hardship, which I didn't. I wrote my name on it and wrote without prejudice, alleged defendant, and wrote I am not the corporate fiction all over it. So they had nothing like that. And so I walked out. I mean, I walked out of there. They literally let me go without signing anything. And so the only time I had to sign thereafter was once I had actually been released and was in the holding area to receive my belongings. And it was another electronic signature pad. And now, by this time I had been released. I was just getting my belongings. And so I did have to sign for those belongings. And so there I signed without prejudice, UCC 1-308, and I signed nothing else, just that. And I left. And
on a digital pen.
Yeah.
Okay. That's important.
Yeah.
The problem of it is, in the paperwork that you filed into the court, did you sign any of your paperwork going into the court?
You mean the things that I sent to them certified mail?
Yep.
I did, signing without prejudice and non-negotiable.
It doesn't make no difference, but you signed your name on it, right?
I signed,
so
I
they still
am
your signature.
Jennifer Williams.
They still pulled your
Okay.
signature. But see, this is part of the fraud that we're running into.
Yeah.
Is they are manipulating. They're going to get that signature someplace, somewhere, off of us.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment we sign anything, because they will not accept our paperwork, because I've tried it, I put that /S/ and they sent my paperwork back because we have to have your signature or we can't file your paperwork. So
what if you had your name legally changed to /S/?
Yep.
And so basically what you're saying, though, is that they have my signature for all intents and purposes for their needs.
Yep.
That they can list and use, and it makes no difference.
That's right. As long as you sign it someplace, they've got it so they can use it. See, this is part of the fraud that we're running into. And this is what this Deborah Jones was sitting here saying. We contract with them unknowingly.
All the time.
All the time. And whether it is verbal, whether we sign something innocent.
Tacitly.
Yeah. And the thing of it is, she had several clients that would not cooperate. The problem of it is they got their legs broke, got their arms broke, got their face broke. All right. They didn't sign nothing. They didn't say anything. But see, that's the crime here. That's the problem here. Because these police officers know if we say no, we don't sign, they're not supposed to push any further than that. The problem of it is the judge and the Bar Association covers it up in order to protect them like they did in Germany during the war. This is where the problem's coming in. This is why it is very significant that if we can get this international tribunal up, the amount of war crimes that can be put against the judge, against the prosecutor, against your public defender, and against
that point. But certainly when you get past a certain point,
that's Doug. Don, could you mute over there? We're still finishing up. All right, you got it. Cool. That's BBS popping in and getting their stream. So we're going to be welcoming BBS here in about 4 minutes.
Okay, but yeah, this is where the problems come. This is why this tribunal is necessary, because once we get the tribunal in, we're not trying to take away the laws off the street, because we have to maintain a certain amount of laws on the street. And I agree with this. I believe that the police officer, the way this thing was originally set up, is there's only 3 ways a police officer is supposed to be able to stop us out on the street. 1 for reckless endangerment, 2 for property damage, or 3 for personal damage. That's it. That's on the non-commerce side. Now, if you are in commerce with these semi-trucks, all right, now they have the regulations for your speed control and all this stuff that regulate them. Again, that's for safety purposes. But the problem of it is there is never an injured party because you got a tail light out or you got a license plate light out. These are criminal charges that they're bringing us in on. This is the problem. But
that's why they want the corporation to be a person, so
yeah.
There's an injured party.
But see, this is something that we went back in many years ago. It was 1899 under Delaware Trust, the Corporate Trust Company of Delaware, the United States Corporate Trust, and the Delaware Trust. There was 3 trust companies that went in and created an act providing general corporate law. That act to provide general corporate law created the corporation fiction. This is where they went in and declared the corporation to be a person, but not a natural person. And that's where it started at in 1899. Because they wanted the corporation to be able to buy, sell, trade, and be able to do business. And that's how they drug us into this stuff.
As well as they wanted them to start holding Federal Reserve notes.
Yes.
They wanted the banks to start transitioning out of gold and silver certificates and holding Federal Reserve notes.
See, the people think that this happened overnight. It happened a couple of years ago. This goes back to
150 years.
It goes back to 1860.
Yeah. Well, even to the founding of the Constitution on the Spendthrift Trust. You can see that there were 9 presidents before Washington. That also. Yeah.
And that stuff was never put in. You know, and the thing is, the Constitution was never ratified properly because, 6 groups granted it, and 5 did not, and 1 sustained.
Yeah, it was never ratified.
No.
Exactly. And it's a Spendthrift Trust. That's ultimately where they get us under the corporate fiction, and then they kind of do the 3-card money on us for 200 years. Until they come up with ultimately what the amalgamation of the 200 years of change here.
But it's a process that the American people, we have been brainwashed. The stuff has come in very slowly. It goes back into that proverbial saying, if you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But if you stick it in cold water and turn the heat up little by little, it will stay there, and you can end up having frog stew because it's got used to the heat. That's what they've done to us. Little by little, they brought us in.
Good metaphor.
Yeah. They brought us in. And the thing of it is, because of our generation, because we've been taught to have license and register everything, we accept it because that's how it's always been. That's the way of life. It's always been this way. We never realized that they were misusing the very laws that they created to manipulate us and trick us into the system.
All right, well, let's hold on for just a second. We're going to be going live to BBS Radio in about 30 seconds here or so.
Okay.
So everybody just take a break here. We've been going for 3 hours. We have covered a tremendous amount of subjects. Don, I want to thank you for coming in here. We have got some exciting shows coming to these Friday nights. So we've got about 30 seconds here. Just relax, everyone. Get a drink. Process what's been said from Jennifer and Rebecca and Rod. And let's think. We're the ones that can change this, whether it's a mayor's court, whether it's doing what Jennifer is doing, whether it's sitting down and studying. 10 seconds. This is the power of live radio. We are in AIB Network at the same time as Google Hangouts, and we are coming live to BBS. Just a second here. I'm just testing my radio voice here. And we are live. Welcome, BBS Radio, to the ongoing call. This is a show called Adventures into Sovereignty today. Normally it's Adventures to the Reality with your host, Andrew Bartzes. But today I am joined by an incredible roundtable. I'm joined by Rod Class, Rebecca Cope, and Jennifer. We are here talking sovereignty. We are talking law. We are talking the corporate fiction as well as many other subjects. This is an ongoing conversation, and for those that are coming from Google Plus or those that are wanting to find out, this whole broadcast will be made available right as soon as the call is done. Rod and Rebecca and Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, Andrew. Yes, it's been a very interesting time here. We're just so thrilled to be able to share because we're really bringing a lot of clarity to what we're dealing with as far as our courts. And what we're dealing with is we're setting up some ways that we, the people, want to have opportunities to hold the corporations posing as governments accountable to the rule of law. So we welcome everybody. It's our own sovereign power that we're dealing with here as we learn to operate from an understanding of the power that is available within our own sovereign being and within our efforts as we join together. So welcome to this show. Thank you, Andrew.
And thank you. Rod and Jennifer Williams, welcome to the show also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as everyone knows, we've been going on for nearly 3 hours here, and we've covered a lot of subjects. So for the new audience that's in here, what we've been talking about is literally this corporate fiction that we're living in. We're coming to the culmination point here of some of the subjects that we've brought out. We are at a point where we as individuals can now take action against the government, as well as using the rules and statutes against them. That is what Rod is well known for, by explaining to the people and in a language of the law what is being done to them. So, Rod, I'd like you to bring you in here and let's sum up what we kind of talked about with this coming the Foreign Powers Act, treating us as prisoners of war, and how they're using against us in the bigger picture.
Okay, if you don't mind, can I first make our announcement of our judicial reform that we're going to have here on July 25th, 26th, and 27th down here in North Carolina. What we have, we're going to be at a campsite called Cross Country Campground. It's at Denver, North Carolina. It's out on 150. The phone number, in order to get your site reserved, is 1-800-852-4840. What this is, it's going to be Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Carl Weston, my brother, and myself, we're going to be educating you on foreclosures. Dwight's going to be getting into the SF-95s. Well, we're going to be talking about how to do accountability on the system. I'm going to be getting into what we've been talking about on the show here tonight, about the Trading with the Enemy Act, the corporation side, of how they brought it in, what we're dealing with in these courts with the Trading with the Enemy Act under the State of Emergency of 1933 or the Ambulatory Act under Executive Order 6111. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a bigger picture that we're dealing with that a lot of you want to understand or know at this point, because a lot of the information that you've been given, it's not wrong information. And it wasn't wrong. It's just that they didn't have all the facts. They didn't have the knowledge that we're sitting on now. And what I mean by that, it goes back to the fact that whenever they created musket loaders, they didn't have the knowledge to make repeaters. When they created the musket loaders, the knowledge only was so far. As time advanced, they've learned to modify their musket loaders to single shots, and then it went into repeating rifles, and then it went into automatics. And this is what we're dealing with the Patriot stuff. There was so much stuff out here. It wasn't wrong. They had a lot of good information, but we're now backing it. We're supporting it. We're pulling congressional documents. And this is what we're going to get into on July 25th, 26th, 27th, which is going to be here in 2 weeks, roughly, on a weekend. Because once we start showing you the congressional document, it's no longer theory, it's no longer concept, it's actual fact. And once you start reading it for yourself and you start understanding it, you're going to get a clearer picture of what we're dealing with, and whether you're dealing with a traffic violation, whether you're dealing with child support, whether you're dealing with a foreclosure, whether you're dealing with a criminal case. It all comes under the one heading of Trading with the Enemy Act, of how they're dragging us into these courts. And once you comprehend this, once you understand this, a lot of this other stuff is going to go off to the wayside, because I realize a lot of you want to come in, you want to be honorable. You want to come in with honor. You want to show courtesy. You want to show respect. The problem, what we're dealing with here, and we all know, if we come through the front door of that courthouse, we come through the front door in that courtroom, we're going to get railroaded, because that's how it's set up. What makes you think if you try to come through the back door, or you try to come through a side door and you're still dealing with that same judge, what makes you think for 1 minute that he is going to be honorable when he wasn't honorable coming through the front door? That's what the problem we're running into. We have been taught if we will come privately into him, there is a certain amount of honor within it. The thing is, we're not dealing with a government. We're dealing with a corporation, an international corporation that overthrew our government. And the people that's sitting on that bench is under that private corporation in order to make money. So the fact, if we win by coming through the back door, it's on the fact that they allowed it, not because our paperwork was something that was spectacular, that made them, oh my God, I better sit down and come in compliance. They don't have to come in compliance when we're being treated as enemies of the state. That's the biggest thing that we've got to realize. You're an enemy. You're a prisoner. And they don't have to treat you with any respect. They don't have to come in with compliance with contracts and rules and regulations, because this is not our government. This is a corporation that has infiltrated our system and infiltrated our public offices. This is what we've got to understand. We have been infiltrated with these
at every level.
Go ahead.
At every level, we've been infiltrated.
Yes.
This fraud goes all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. And this is one of the reasons we are featuring here on BBS, as well as Google Plus and at the AIB Network and TalkShoe, why we're bringing everyone together from the OPP side, the New Earth Nation side, the Galactic Historian side, because we all need to know this information, so as sovereign individual beings, we can make informed choices about the truth of what is going on. And what Rod and Rebecca and Jennifer are bringing here is a layer of truth that's written in our own laws. some of the psychic information and the galactic history, but I'm here in the present as a sovereign being myself, who also understands if I don't pay attention to what's going on in the law, and I don't pay attention to the ways they're trying to trick my brothers and sisters, I am just as much as at fault as those people who are staying in ignorance, or blissfully ignorant states of being, because they'd rather believe the stage actors, they'd rather believe the actors behind the judge's robes, than say, yes, that is the belief system I go for. I am one of those people that says, belief system, belief system, belief system. Those corporate people inside those judges' offices, they know they don't have a real bond. They know they have no real oaths. They all know this. The lawyers know what they're doing, and they are earning money off of us. They are putting us into corporate prisons with corporate rules, and these people are making money at slave labor. They're now employed as telemarketers. It's gone that far. Those are called work camps. Okay? Is that a far leap to call that a work camp? No, it's not. Because it's just the vision of the corporate system in which it can cannibalize its people at all levels of existence until we say no with knowledge and wisdom, until we've done enough actions, whether it's through paperwork or through protest, whether it's through drum and song or spirit and prayer. It comes down to the energies being expressed in a common movement with common people speaking the common language of truth and justness. So I'd like to bring in Rebecca here as part of the New Earth representative. We are going to be putting together International Tribunal on Natural Justice, and Rod is going to be a part of this. And let's talk the International Tribunal of Natural Justice. Start.
Yes, okay. Well, you can see as you get a chance to understand Rod a whole lot more that he is one of our key investigative witnesses, simply because he's put it through the courts, he's put it through his own personal experience, which is the best way to learn this stuff. And then as he's learned it, he's come back and he's shared it with all of us. He's been through the fire. And so what we're doing is we find these people who are willing to come forward and bring solid evidence, black ink on white paper, so we can begin to have this evidence trail that holds the corporations posing as our governments accountable, so that we're looking at several different avenues to be able to do this. One is setting up the International Tribunal for Natural Justice so that we can begin to hold these people accountable. We're also doing things like this SF-95 that Rod just referred to, so that as we hold the individual agents accountable to the rule of law, well, we have to know how they're breaking those laws first. But I also want to mention that one of the most important things that New Earth Nation is doing is to bring in the peace treaty. For the first time in recorded history, we the people get to call an end to the endless war that has been perpetrated on us by these corporations posing as governments. One of the most fascinating things, as Rod has been really working toward bringing a lot of this evidence, a lot more of the pieces have come together in recent, even in recent months as we've started this heavy-duty work toward the investigation. We have pieces of the puzzle kind of coming into our laps here, and what we have understood completely is the War Powers Act of 1917 has never been lifted. These corporations posing as governments absolutely declared perpetual war on the peoples of the world. And so they're self-chosen rulers. Any way you go about it, they're self-chosen rulers. They have pulled us into their nightmare, and we have to realize that we have given them our permission to do this, whether by our silence, whether by we've just gone along with it, or whether we have not asked enough questions. So we're all about asking questions. And then we're also about signing this beautiful New Earth Nation treaty that another set of our volunteers have put together so that we have a foundation. And that foundation is what gives us the opportunity to seat the International Tribunal to begin to hold these corporations posing as governments and these agents who won't be accountable to the rule of law to start holding them accountable. And so here we are tonight. We've got people from everywhere joining in as we're beginning to come together as the people. And that's really the most exciting thing that is here for me to watch unfolding as we're all coming together with a common problem to look at how we each can be responsible for it. So that's the most exciting part of it to me, as we're working within the Earth Nation and the peace treaty that we're all invited to sign as the people, that we have the opportunity to seat this international tribunal to begin to hold these officials accountable.
Well, see, one of the things that we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is this. These judges, lawyers, public officials, just because we're going to have an international tribunal, we can get it together, they're going to have a surprise coming here. Because, see, under Title 10, which is the Military Code of Justice, Section 333, when these people get tried, they're going to be tried under the laws of this country. They're not going to be tried under international laws. They're going to be tried first under the laws of this country. This is why understanding their rules, their regulations, their job description, when it comes time for a tribunal, we're going to be able to walk in and be able to charge them under their own rules and regulations under that public office, not under their corporation, not under their fictional side, but under that public office that they took and they used to obtain federal funding under and swindle from. And this is where the significance comes in, because like Becky and I have sat here and talked, when you're bringing in a judge, you're bringing in a lawyer, or you're bringing in an attorney, or you're bringing in law enforcement, there is no such thing as them having an attorney to represent them when they're already trained in the law to start with, and they need to answer to the tribunal. And this is something that Becky and I sit here and talked about, is that we don't need a grand jury at this point. What we need is an administrative hearing of a tribunal where they come before the tribunal and they justify their actions sitting on that bench, or they justify their actions misrepresenting the client or prosecuting a defendant when there was no plaintiff in that courtroom, or the fact that the police officer sit here and stopped you without a verified complaint on an affidavit and with a warrant to search. It isn't the fact, well, we need to have a lawyer. No, sir. You're not entitled to a lawyer. You committed a crime. You now justify it, because if you get a lawyer, your lawyer's going to be charged with you. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're looking at if we can get the tribunal to look at from this point, because what this is, the first section is an administrative review of their action. They don't need a mouthpiece to sit down and explain their job of what they did or did not do. If they are turned around and found guilty, now this is where a grand jury would come in. The evidence would be put before a grand jury. Now they would be tried for war crimes, and they would be tried for treason. But first is the administrative side to get them out of office, to take them off the bench or take them off the street. That's the first intent of trying to do this to a tribunal.
Can this also be done through an inherent court of equity?
If we can find one that can do the enforcement on this.
What would be that requirement? I know there's a lot of Native American communities that still use inherent courts of equity. Actually all throughout Canada too.
The thing of it is, these court of equities that you're walking into, who is sitting on those benches?
Well, that's where the next part is. Those courts can be spawned. It's part of the common law right to create the courts of equity when there is a corrupt government. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is where right now until, and if we can get an international, because right now this is really an international incident.
Correct.
And
It's a global fraud.
yes, well, it's just
take it all the way up to that perspective. It's a global fraud.
But if we can come back and first, you first have to go after a civil action here. You go back to
Do you
civil.
really? At the maxims of equity, you're coming with clean hands as an individual, not as a group, to do what? To get an injunctive order to stop them from violating your rights. All you really need is a place to put your whole story out without them denying you the ability to tell your story.
Well, this is the purpose of the administrative side on this, where we walk in, out on private, on us walk in, and we bring the claim and let that judge or let that prosecutor or let that police officer justify his action while we lay down their job description of what they broke administratively.
Right.
Get them taken off the bench, take them off the street, and then if there is enough evidence here to take them off the street, now this is where the criminal side comes in. This is where the grand jury side comes in. This is where if we can get the international court, or if we set up a court, and at this point, once we show corruption on this side and we show where they have sold us internationally, this is now comes into where an international, another Nuremberg trial needs to be set up on these people for international selling and slavery.
A global fraud, yeah.
But we need to first show them on a civil side of administrative violations, which created the fraud on the international side.
On what the treaty for the subdivision was.
So once we started on that side, it only going to take about 2 hearings. And the rest of these people are going to start scrambling, because once they learn that there's an indictment going on, the rest of these judges and police officers, they're going to be one to either resign, get out of the country, or they're going to do mass suicide. And you know what? That's not our problem.
I think a lot of them are going to turn to these tribunals and start telling the truth, honestly, and hope that we don't go to a point of humiliation with how deep this fraud goes, and begin offering a place where people could go, we have compassion and forgiveness for you. It's time to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and help us see how this fraud goes at the angles we haven't seen yet. Ultimately, that's what the greatest success out of these tribunals. You get dozens of witness blowers that sit down and say, this is what I did as an agent of this. This is what I did as this. These are the books that I wrote, and this is how I trained people how to keep this fiction going. They're out there, and they're listening to us right now. And they are one step away of beginning the process of saying, you know what, I don't want to see my brothers and sisters in slavery anymore.
Well, the thing of it is, these judges, they knew what they did when they did it, and they made buku money off of us.
Their retirement accounts, oh yeah, we go deep into what their retirement accounts do for every person that they smack the gavel on.
Yeah.